Welcome to Your Unapologetic Life, the podcast for the woman who is done crying herself to sleep after a breakup or divorce. You're not chasing closure anymore, you're craving clarity. I'm your host, Morgan Barkus, empowerment coach, speaker, and author. I help women rebuild confidence and never settle again. Here on the podcast, you'll get real talk solo episodes, inspiring interviews with women who've risen from the wreckage, and expert advice to help you design your bold, beautiful next chapter on your terms. This is your unapologetic life, so go after it. Tell me about Bristol. Are you born and raised there?
No, I was born in Australia.
Yeah. My accent radar was way off on that, Emily.
So I was born in Queensland, in a place called Toowoomba.
Okay.
Which is sort of in the middle of nowhere. It's Queensland, in the country. And then I moved to the UK when I was about 22.
Okay.
And I moved to Cambridge, and I lived in Cambridge for 15 years, and then I moved to Bristol about 10 years ago. So I've been in Bristol for 10 years.
Yeah, all right. I don't know if we talked about this. I feel like every Australian I've met is encouraged to travel. It's like you all are so far away and you're on an island, whereas I feel like in the United States, it's not as normal to be like, go travel, go see the world. It's more like, it's just not, in my experience, especially being from the Midwest. And yeah. I feel like every Australian I've met has traveled a lot and they know how to party.
That's accurate on both counts.
Truly, I remember years ago I used to work at this nightclub and we would get off pretty early in the morning. It was like 8 a.m. So you walk outside, and I was waiting to get my car, and this guy comes over and he starts talking to me. He was so nice, handsome, Australian, and dude partied, and he was going to keep partying. And this was like in the Miami area. So he was like, gonna go out and keep going, and I was like, good on ya, I'm gonna go to bed.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, we do like a party, and I think we also we're pretty open and friendly. That's what I love about Australia.
Yes, I agree. There's two, mostly men, categories of men that I've always really enjoyed their vibe, and it's men from Boston and it's men from Australia.
Nice. Yeah, sounds good to me.
Anyway, enough about men. Let's talk about you. Right. So you are currently in the UK, and yes. You are a calling in the one coach. So take me back to maybe a time where you weren't as successful at love and calling in the one and thought, you know what, maybe I need to learn how to do this different. And then it not only changed your life, then moved into wanting to change other people's lives. So take me back wherever you want to, where you realized maybe you weren't doing the love thing quite as efficiently or effectively as you wanted to.
Sure thing. Well, I know exactly when that was. It was quite a moment in my life. I remember in lockdown. It was in 2020. It all just really hit me. I found myself. I was living in a shared house. I was alone, even though I was with friends. I wasn't in a relationship. I just had another relationship that ended, and I just felt I had calling in the one on my shelf, and I dipped into it a little bit. And obviously, in lockdown, we had the opportunity to really be with ourselves. I thought there's a lot of growing up that went on globally, and I looked at the book, I read it, and it was the first time I'd really properly read it, and it spoke to me in a way that no other book has ever spoken to me. I could locate myself in Katherine's experience. It resonated with me in my whole body, and I had it was really painful, to be honest, Morgan, a very painful realization that all of my ups and downs in the love department had one thing in common, which was me. And I think I had always thought on some level, unconsciously, that everything was just happening to me. These dramas were happening, and I was sort of the victim of all of this. And what Calling in the One did for me is it woke me up to my part that I had to play in what everything that had been going on. And I'd been in and out, like I had one long relationship, a 10-year relationship. All of my 20s, I was in a relationship.
Whoa, that is young to be in a committed relationship. And you felt like at that time that was the person for you?
I believe that we were both really young and we kind of fell into the relationship as young people together and grew up side by side, not really having adult conversations about our relationship or, where we were headed and what we were doing. And actually 10 years we were engaged to be married, and it was a very painful breakup. But what I look back and realize, is that we were on different wavelengths and had been for a long time. And I had buried my head in the sand and not really seeing what was going on. Both of us, and I just speak for myself, I just didn't have the relational development to handle what was going on around me. And so that broke up. And then the next 10 years, I embraced my single life, but I'd had a few sort of shorter relationships. But I think what I realized in 2020 was that, I just realized that I didn't love myself very much. And when that realization really hit me, that's when I knew I had to do something about it. So Calling in the One would seem to be the way. And so that's when I started my journey with it. And it's completely transformed my life through the transformation of my relationship with myself. I wake up every morning with me, and I treasure this friendship and this partnership that I have with myself. It's the most beautiful thing I've ever worked on in my life that I didn't know how it could be. So
Yeah. When I kind of did not a deep dive, that would be an exaggeration. The Calling in the One book came up because I read Gina DeVee's book called The Audacity to Be Queen, and she talks about her love story and finding her husband, and she had mentioned Katherine Woodward Thomas. So I was like, yeah, I'll get this book, and so I bought it on audiobook, and I didn't start it. It was just kind of sitting there. Well, then she came up again, and someone suggested I should read the book, and I was like, well, this is a sign. Maybe I should start reading this book. And then I also wanted to learn more about Katherine herself. And so I went into YouTube and started finding interviews that she had done. And I, when you were speaking, it reminded me of something she had said and shared. She said many people come back to her and say, thank you for the book. It wasn't about finding the one, it was about finding me. That
yes.
I'm the one. And so I like that in a way. I know another author that has said the same thing. Sometimes you write a book and it's a Trojan horse, and not to be manipulative or evasive, but you the end result can be the title of the book. You call in the one. You don't realize also in the process that you're calling in yourself, and you're learning about yourself. And I love that book. I'm going to ask you why in a second. And I love that book was so impactful to you. The book that hit me the hardest a couple years ago was called The Midnight Library. And
Ooh.
it's actually a fictional book. And I was in a relationship at the time, and a girlfriend of mine had recommended the book. She said it was really good, and it was kind of a mind bender. And I was like, "Ooh, I like that." And I read it twice and bought it on audiobook, because for me, it actually was one of the reasons that I decided to end the relationship that I was in, because it was just like, we don't both want the same things. And if we stay together, then one of us is going to have to sacrifice our dream or the way that we want this life to look. And I know it'll be me, because I'm always the one that's like bending and giving in. And so anyway, that book hit me. So tell me more about Calling in the One, why you said of all the books you've read, that one was like the book for you.
Sure. I mean, I'd love to hear more about that book, and I'll get the title of it in the end. Um, I think when I started looking into my pattern, which is the thing that always happens in our love lives, and that's where the Calling in the One process really begins, by looking at the pattern. And when I looked at my pattern, I saw that I was choosing unavailable partners over and over again. So either emotionally unavailable or sometimes physically unavailable, partners that lived far away, partners that had 3 children from a previous relationship and really didn't have any time. And what I didn't know, and which I think it's in week 1 or 2 of the book, is really about our healthy needs and about really waking up to our healthy needs in relationships. And I identified one of mine as presence. I desire presence in a partnership, and yet I was constantly choosing people that couldn't be present with me in a myriad of ways. And that made me curious, like, why was I doing that over and over again? And then what I've now learned, and what I do with my clients, is we look at the consciousness, the beliefs that underlie that pattern. And it's those beliefs that are driving us, and I identified a really strong belief that I dropped into whenever I was disappointed in love, which is, you see, I'm inferior. Other people are better than me. That was where I dropped down to. And we all have some version of these beliefs, whether it's I don't matter or I'm alone, other people always leave me. And they're a traumatized part of us that are formed in response to something that happened, or we're even born with these beliefs, in our DNA to an extent. So when we are able to identify those unconscious beliefs, then we can start relating to them from the truth of who we are, which is, of course, I'm unique, I'm incomparable, there's no one like me. That's the truth that hits back at that story, that I'm inferior. And so in order to create a life that looks nothing like what we've had before, in order to change, to transform, we look to create outside that wounded story, and we create from the truth of who we are. Because if you are centered in I don't belong, or mine's I'm inferior, we will generate evidence for that identity. We will, in our relational field, will have that mirrored back to us. Just like, the reason I knew I didn't love myself is because it was mirrored back to me by my romantic partners. I didn't really know it about myself until someone got very close, and they were like, you don't love yourself. So we're all mirrors for each other, aren't we? And it couldn't be more clear than in Calling in the One, I think.
I used to date a guy who would say that all the time. He'd say, Morgan, the universe is a mirror. And I was like, what do you mean? And I understand now, but yeah. When you realize this, and I asked because if you could explain this more, Katherine's work, she talks about, yes, it's important to figure out where this came from. Like, and you could do that with therapy or a coach like you, where you figure out, where did this come from? And what is this belief? Well, what is the belief? And then where did it come from? And you can't stay back there. Like Katherine's work, she talks about, and then you have to go and transform. Now you got to move forward, because you can't just sit back in the past and go, bummer, that sucks that happened. And that's the belief that came out of that. Great. Yes. And when I went to school to be a therapist, I was very much into the solution-focused therapy. My friend who is a therapist, she jokes with me. She's like, you in that solution focus. Because I do. I was like, okay, great. I don't want to dive into the past and wallow in all that. Like, I have an issue now. Tell me how to fix it. And I know it is important to also figure out where it came from. I get that. And I'm a very solution-focused person. So talk to me about, you find out you have these beliefs, and then you're like, wait, where did that come from? And then what do you do with that?
Yeah, I totally understand what you're getting at. And Katherine describes it really beautifully. She says, connecting the dots back to why we are where we are, why we show up the way we do, is good to know, and it's good to work out, but it's not where the gold is. It's not where the gold is. It's the question then is, who am I now in the face of that? Or who do I choose to be right now? So she says as well that healing is the domain of the past and transformation is the domain of the future, which I think is really important. So one of the beautiful things we do in Calling in the One, I would say in my coaching program, it's a tale of two halves. So it's a 90-day program. So the first 6 weeks or so, we look at preparing the ground. So removing the blocks and barriers, doing a lot of deep inner work, going into the past and completing any agreements that we might have, conscious or unconscious, with people that have come up in our past, and learning how to transform or evolve a toxic relationship through certain communication sort of skills. And then the second piece, it's all future focused, but really we then turn towards the future. You say, what are we creating? And right at the very beginning of Calling in the One, any of your listeners who have read it will know we start with an intention. So we start with the future in mind, what I desire. So it might be, I desire to be in a happy, healthy partnership. And, Katherine likes to put a date on it. So whether it's 2026 or, or my birthday. And then you align all of your actions and intentions behind that. So it's really a process of who you are being and who you are becoming. Right. So it's very much oriented towards the future. And I think that is the power of the program. It's one of the key points that makes it a little bit different.
What do you think for women that maybe they haven't done the work yet, or they don't know as much about this yet, and that's why they would come to someone like you and work all this out? What do you think the reasons are that they push love away unintentionally, or they are stuck in these patterns? And I guess for me, I've always wanted to believe, well, because like, for instance, I look at my parents, right? They got together at 19 years old. They didn't know anything about anything. You know what I mean? Like, and they got married. My dad had just turned 20. My mom was about to turn 20. So they're like kids, right? And good on them. They found out through the years, there's things that they do. It's so cute. I'll tell them, I'm like, for someone who went to school to be a marriage and family therapist, what's interesting is I'll see them do things that, like, the Gottmans, for instance, say, this is good, like bids for attention, or like my mom will be like, oh, look at this thing. And my dad will be like, yeah, that's really great. Even though he has zero interest, like they're always, and they communicate about everything. And I say all this to say they like learn how to do love together and figure it out. And it's been kind of messy, and they've never been to therapy, and they figured it out, and they're 51 years married and still like flirty and happy, and they love each other. And so I guess for me, I was like, well, if you find love, it just works out, and so I guess I feel like I just haven't met my person. So sometimes it feels hard to think, oh, this is my fault.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Because I guess I feel like, and I hear what you're saying too, because there was a point in my life, without even knowing anything about Katherine Woodward's work or the One, Calling in the One, I was like, had not a lot of great relationships. Who's the common denominator? Me. And it was like, okay, so what does that mean? I guess I feel like the naive part of me maybe is like, if it's the right person, you don't have to know all the things, and you don't have to have like worked on yourself. And then at the same time, it's like, well, maybe that's not, love isn't everything. Like, you actually have to go and do the work, and because I'm the one that's calling in the wrong person. Does that make any sense? Like, it's just like, you want to just go live your life and hope that love will fix everything. And it's not the case, it seems. So talk to me about that.
I think when you are brave enough to sort of self-reflect, you're someone who obviously really self-reflects and is highly self-responsible, and you've also had beautiful love modeled, messy but whole and healthy love modeled for you in your childhood and still now, which is a beautiful thing. So although I don't have the answers for your situation specifically, I think when you're looking at it, it's all about just a gentle inquiry into really into your own heart, like see it in the places where you're defended perhaps, or where because we all communicate things subtly, and I think those unconscious beliefs are unconscious. We're not aware of them. And the work that we do, I think it's in week 3 in the book, Transforming Your Love Identity, really digging down into there is usually where we find our answers for ourselves. They just sort of start to reveal themselves. Before I identified this inferior belief that I had about myself, I didn't know it existed. And it's so freeing to know now, that not just know, but to be able to relate to that part of me and to hold that part of me and to tell her the truth about it. And so that comes from doing that inner work, from and these beliefs, they live in our bodies, can live in our chest, they can live down in our bellies. And I think that's where the gold really is. And then learning how to relate to that part of you from your more, from the part of you that's able to hold a wider perspective.
Yeah.
And the process itself holds a lot of magic in this way. So
As you're talking, I'm thinking, wait a second, maybe we can all call in love. Like we feel love. That doesn't mean it's healthy. Like my parents got lucky because they fell in love and they also figured it out together. And a lot of people maybe fall in love and you're like, yeah, love is real. That doesn't necessarily make it healthy. Because I guess, yeah, for me, I've probably called in a lot of love and it didn't mean it was good for either one of us, if that makes sense. Because we weren't a match. Maybe I wasn't coming from a healthy place or my best place. And if like attracts like, then I'm attracting stuff that, if I'm not healthy, then, or if, somebody who's listening is like, maybe I'm not in my best place. And so it's not that I haven't attracted in love, I just haven't attracted in healthy stuff.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It does make sense. You know what it feels like. It's just
Mm-hmm.
learning that discernment, I think, is a big piece of it. What was I just thinking about? Yeah, so there is also, I think, a transition that if we're looking to call in a partner and we are happily single, strong, independent women, living our best lives, I think there is a moment where, in order to make the space for love to come in, there might be things that we will be letting go of. Like complete and utter autonomy or independence, for example, because in a relationship there's that level of interdependence. And that sort of letting go and allowing loss is one of the first steps to calling in a partner, because you're making space for the other. So, and those kind of things. For example, I remember when I called in my last relationship, I got a second bedside table, which I'd never had before, and just making my space all nice and just really being ready to share my life again, because I listened to your podcast, which I listened to 2 this morning, which really inspired me, Morgan. And I was listening to the episode about living alone, because we both live alone and I love living alone. I love it. We're so privileged to be in a position where we have the time to ourselves and space, physical space. So many people in the world don't have that opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah. And don't have the resources to do it, even if they wanted to. Yeah.
So, and you also talked in your podcast about relating to our own aloneness and how we have a choice about how we relate to our own aloneness when we find ourselves in a position, perhaps sometimes when we don't really want to, we don't really choose it, we just end up alone. And I really loved what you were saying about that, because that really resonated with me. And it's been such a gift to have this alone time. And I think you can, if you do find yourself in that place, it's a great opportunity to prepare for the next chapter or the next season in your life, whatever you choose that to be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I like what Katherine talked about, how she didn't have her space in a way that was ready for a partner. And I thought that I was looking around, I was like, I got a lot of room. And then, but the one thing that hit me was this vision board behind me, and I realized there was no couples on my vision board. It was all like single
Yeah.
women living their best life, wearing cute fashion, and I was like, "Ooh, I better put a couple couples on there." If I yeah. Okay, let's go back to the sacrifice
Yeah.
part because I will say, I will admit, here on this podcast that I am petrified of losing my freedom. I have lived alone and been on my own for 40, well, not 45 years. I lived with my parents until I was, early 20s. But for the last 25 years, I have been on my own. I travel alone. I have no problem doing that. I eat out alone all the time. I'm very good being on my own. And I'm
Yeah.
so used to it that I just have like a routine and I got all my things. And, I wake up in the morning and I get to decide if I'm going to listen to a podcast or put on some music and I'm going to journal. And do I want coffee today or do I feel like one of my energy drinks? I just I have, and then there's days where I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go shower and go into the city. And I'm very, very free. And when you
Yes.
talked about being okay, that's where I think my cognitive dissonance is, or I
Mhm.
don't know what you would call it. I'm really like resistant, I guess is the word I'm looking for,
Mhm.
um, to sacrificing or letting go of that complete autonomy. So for the woman out there who, like in my case, a lot of my women, they're newly single. They're not crying themselves to sleep anymore, and they're like, "Whoa, all right, single again. Maybe it's been
Yeah.
a while since I've done this. So I'm, working with being on my own and figuring out my money and my career and what I want my space to look like. And what if I start dating again? What is that going to look like?"
Yeah.
And then they start to kind of enjoy it if they are resistant, like me, to inviting someone back into their life again because they're afraid that the person will somehow change the dynamic in not a good way. How do they stay open to the idea that it could be a good thing, like the right
Yeah.
person will be the right thing, and how do you call in that right person?
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
That's a
I
big
mean,
question, Emily.
I love
Like
your
a
big
lot of
question.
women that stayed too long in a relationship are like, I will never do that again. And yet
Yes.
I want to be in a partnership. Yes. Like a lot of
Yeah.
women I've talked to, they're like, oh, I stayed too long and I know I stayed too long and I wasted my time. No, you didn't waste your time. It was a learning experience. It's what you
Yes.
needed to go through to get where you are now. And yet they're scared of settling again. So there's
Mm.
like this push pull of like, I want a partner, but I don't want to give up certain things. So anyway, talk to me.
So, what strikes me first is when we are looking at what we really desire in a relationship, to know what we really, really desire
Mm.
is so important. So, if you desire a high level of freedom in your relationship, then claim that as a healthy need for yourself. If you desire to live separately in your relationship, you get to say that it's possible. There are so many couples that live separately that have healthy, happy, joyfully connected, thriving relationships. It
Hmm.
doesn't have to look like that sort of one model that sort of normative model that we have of relationships. You get to decide, and the more specific you are, I guess, the more ready you are to when you meet someone who also has those desires and those needs. Like I said, one of my primary needs is presence, and it sounds to me like one of your primary needs is freedom. and that's a healthy need to have. And I think that's a big piece of it. I think understanding that healthy, happy love it doesn't all look the same. There are so many different ways it can appear. And you mentioned, John and Julie Gottman, didn't you, in the Gottman Institute? And I love it in their book, The Seven Principles of Making Marriage Work, how they talk about engaging conflict in a healthy way is one of the most important things that healthy couples do. It's not
Mhm.
about having no conflict. It's about being able to engage it and be sort of lighthearted about it. And the stories in that book, that was very enlightening for me. I definitely didn't know how to do any of that. so, you know,
Agree. I love that John gets out a notebook when his wife is like, honey, I want to talk to you about something. He's like, you got it. And he pulls out his notebook and he takes notes and then like reflects it back to her to make sure he has it correct. I was like, you are a gem. I love this.
Dream man.
Yeah. I will say I am definitely very averse to conflict because it's just I'm not great at it, and I'm a Libra, and we don't like to fight, and so it's really hard for me. So being with a partner that is like, okay, tell me more, instead of someone who like explodes and reacts and defends himself, like that's not a good partnership for me. I want to go back to what you were saying as you were talking. I was like, wait a second, you're basically giving women permission, like the book says, to call in exactly what they want rather than just hope for love in general. Like it's almost like you get to order off the menu. That's a silly way to say it, but it's like, some people that are out in the world, me included, every day I'm out and I'm interacting with folks, and then you meet somebody and you got a little vibe and you think, maybe he's the one. That's a cute way to look at it. And you're like, well, maybe it all works out. And it sounds like you're saying, no, you're actually deciding what you want and being very particular about it and not just letting love happen. You're deciding what you want and specifically calling that in. Am I reading you right on that one?
You are, yes, yeah. Waking up to our power to create our own lives is definitely a
Mm,
big part of it, and becoming the woman who is able to call that in. So
say more.
if you're
Say
so if you're looking for a generous partner, becoming a model of generosity in your life for others. If you
more.
are looking to have a partner who's adventurous, then you will create an adventurous life, because a man who's you become the love you seek, basically. That really is the journey. Become the love you seek. If you desire someone who's I don't know, really wealthy, and maybe you do just desire a wealthy partner. Maybe you might want to be wealthy yourself. Maybe you have a deep desire to earn a lot of money. So it can be real pointed to your own journey while you're waiting. Rather than being the waiting woman, be the woman who's becoming. The woman who's constantly becoming.
I love that. So it's acting as if and just playing it out. And I often tell people that when they're like, I kind of want to go back to dating, and it's like you can go and do the dating apps if you want, and you can do the speed dating and whatever you feels like your jam. I don't promote that or want to do it myself, because
Mm-hmm.
I feel like you're saying, I go do what I want to do that feels exciting to me. And then I hope that like minded people are also in those settings and doing those activities. And it's like, oh, hey, we both like the same coffee shop or kind of art or whatever it is that I'm off doing. I feel
Yeah,
like when you go and live your best life, like you're saying, as the
yeah.
person you want to be, there will be like minded people around you.
Absolutely. When you like you're just saying, like enriching your life, making it the most juicy life possible,
Mhm.
and becoming the most loving. Maybe also increasing your capacity
Hmm.
to there are lots of us who are quite good at giving love, but also increasing your capacity to receive love, to
Hmm.
really be open to receiving more and more love into your life. There's so much love. There are so many people who need love given, and there's so much love to receive that isn't just in that romantic setting. So making love the center of your life,
Hmm.
really giving and receiving love. What a beautiful intention to make.
I like that. Now, so besides becoming, so you become the woman who, and so if you want a generous lover, be generous. If you want an adventurous person, go be adventurous. Rewind to also when you were talking about kind of laying out what you really want in a partnership and what love really looks like to you. Then are you meditating on that every day? Are you like, how do you always, besides going and being the woman who, how
Yeah,
do you stay, like, how do you keep top of mind the things that you really want and stay anchored in that? Does that make
yeah,
sense?
it does, and it's a really, really important question. And the answer, and this is what I encourage clients to do every day. If you're really looking to create love and you're wanting to call it in soon, as soon as possible, then we do a visioning process. And this is where we really activate our imagination and really unleash it, and imagine that your partner is here with you now. And what are you experiencing in this moment with your partner? And so you're imagining it as if you're in it. So what are you hearing? What sounds are you hearing? Is it the ocean breeze? Is it the sound of laughter, or even children? And we engage the five senses in just a really beautiful and it's a really fun visioning meditation. And I found when I first started doing this, my ability to imagine was a little limited, to be honest. And it's really improved. Our imagination can improve with practice. Unsurprisingly, it's one of our core mental faculties. So really trying on your future love. And what can come up in these visionings are especially if you've not experienced the kind of love that you're longing for, if you really haven't had an experience of it, imagining it can really bring it into your body. So bring it into your now. So the feeling of being deeply cherished by another person, the feeling of someone putting your needs before their own, organizing around your needs, all these beautiful things. So when I'm with clients, it's my favorite bit. We just weave all these gorgeous imagery into the visioning process. And then the clients that are the most successful are the ones that do it really regularly.
Yeah,
because
like every morning, or maybe if you're in a broken spot, it's morning, noon, and night. You just now I'm envisioning like sitting and just like thinking about this. Is that what you mean? Like you're sitting and you're visualizing,
Mm-hmm.
or are you
And here,
journaling? Or, do you journal and then visualize, or is one better than the other? Or tell me.
so visualize first with your eyes closed, if you like, really focusing not just on the vision, but on the ears, the feeling sense, the touch, the way it would feel.
Okay.
And the sounds, the sights, and the feelings, and even the smells. The smell of coffee he might bring you in the morning. The smell of your favorite meal being cooked for you. These kind of beautiful things. And then there are three questions that you can ask yourself at the end of the visioning. What would I need to let go of in order to manifest this intention?
Okay. I know what that one is for me. Okay.
What would I need to grow? Are there skills or capacities I might need to grow? For example, it might be like I could learn how to speak up more in relationship, or I can learn how to set boundaries, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally, and the key one, I think, is what is my next step? So taking action that's aligned with that intention is so important.
Do you have an example? So if someone's listening and go, what does that mean? Like, do you have an example?
So if you are looking to call in a partnership where you're going like really fit and healthy and running marathons together, yet you're sitting on the sofa, it might be an idea to like join the gym. Yeah. So, or if you're looking for a travel buddy, book your next trip. So you're sort of becoming, you're acting as if this is already here now. So it's not something, we're not future casting, you're living it now, as if you're already partnered. Yeah.
As you were talking about the visioning stuff, I immediately imagined me and my partner on the couch, and we're just like really close together, and we're talking, and I'm saying how I feel, and he's like, "Really? Say more." Because I love a person that asks a lot of questions. I love that. So for me, I want somebody that wants to know everything. That's I like to talk a lot, so I was like, yeah. I know what I'm going to let go of. Now I know what I'm going to do. Wait, what was the second one?
So, are there any skills or capacities I can grow?
I need to speak up for myself more, because if I have a feeling, I'm always afraid to say it out loud. Okay, well, not always. Anyway, so that brings me to you recently on the Instagram. I watched a video that you did about self-abandoning, and I think a lot of my clients, that's where they were, because they were in a relationship that wasn't the right fit, and it might not have been volatile, or it just was like this isn't the right fit, and why is that? And for
Yeah.
some women, it's they were self-abandoning. They just stayed.
Yeah.
They didn't ask for what they want. They didn't speak up when they needed to. They settled on things that they're like, I don't love this, but so anyway, I would love for you to expand, and we'll first talk about self-abandoning. What is it? And give some
Mhm.
examples, because I think there are a lot of women that are givers and people pleasers, and they don't put themselves first, and it can
Yes.
get as unhealthy as self-abandonment, and that is not a great place to be in. So talk to us about self-abandonment.
Yes, absolutely. So self abandonment happens when we disown our own feelings and our own needs. And if you grew up in an environment perhaps where your needs, it was really not okay to have needs when you were growing up, or you were maybe told you're even too emotional, we quite often learn to sort of shut our connection down to our own feelings and needs, and we don't tune into ourselves. So, in order to transform that self abandonment, and what self abandonment can look like, yeah, it can be overgiving in order to, sort of always sort of going over to the other person. I mean, it's a form of codependence, isn't it? It's really leaving yourself and going over to the other person. And when I look back in my own experience with self abandoning, it can show up in a myriad of ways. Staying too long in a relationship, not assessing a partner's character, um, sort of as soon as you meet someone, sort of just sort of rushing in without assessing that person's ability to commit to you or how they might treat you. That's a form of self abandonment, and we can self abandon in such a myriad of ways through drugs, alcohol, sex, shopping. Phone addiction, they're all also forms of self abandonment where when anything to avoid hearing what's actually going on inside our own hearts. So when we're brave enough to tune in and really be present with our own hearts, that's really the antidote to self abandonment. And it's a practice learning to listen into your own feelings and needs. It's something that I had no idea how to do, and and a coach taught me, and I did it every day as a practice, as a specific practice, along with the visioning, for a couple of years.
Hmm.
And now, like I still do that practice very regularly. I did it just the other day, and I might do it later today. But it also is just a relationship that's a little bit more formed now. But I think anybody can do it at any time, and it's such an important thing to know how you're feeling and what you're needing, so that when you're in a relationship you can then presence your feelings and needs, but from a place where you're not pulling on that other person to sort of meet them. You're whole, and you're just stating them and it's like a different energy. Rather than pulling on another person, you're owning your own feelings and needs.
I love that. One of the best skills I learned when I went to school to be a therapist was the I feel versus like basically just going, you do this and why don't you do that? And how come that? And it was just, I feel like whatever. And
Yeah.
it's such a different dynamic between two people when you can just speak to your feelings. And like you're saying, you have to first identify what they are. You have to be able to learn how to listen to your body and go, where am I feeling this? And what is this? And,
Yes.
um, and then to be able to say out loud and not
Yeah.
worry about, because for me, anxiously attached over here, so I was always nervous about saying how I feel, even if I knew what it was, because I was
Mm.
afraid of what the reaction would be from the other person. So my
Yes.
self-abandonment, I've always I've been a very feeling person. I'm very good at that. I have a lot of feelings, and I haven't always been, my self-abandonment hasn't been the first half where I don't even know what they are. Mine was not saying anything and just
Right.
eating them and just sitting with them. And then it's like, then my needs aren't getting met because I'm not expressing what I need.
Yes.
That
Yes.
was my
Absolutely.
self abandonment. Question about, because, and don't get me wrong, I end up following a lot of like feminist accounts on the Instagram, and there's a lot of like, I don't want to say anti-man. It's more like there are no good men, and just like digs on men, like, and there are a lot of, like, this is why I'm not dating, and they'll have like a funny story that happened, and there are a lot of men out there that haven't done the work, and they're probably not good candidates to be healthy, good partners. That being said, I am releasing that. It's one of the things I'm releasing in 2026 is I'm not entertaining anyone that has anything negative to say, because I feel like, yeah, it's funny and a lot of it's true, and there are good men in the world.
There are
So
good men in the world.
there are. And
Yes.
my dad is one of them. My brother, even my nephew who's 17.
Exactly.
Like, and I'm like, my 17-year-old nephew is a little romantic and he's so sweet and so kind. And I was like, where did this guy come from? And he's just a sensitive kid. And it's wonderful. And so I know that there are good men in the world. And for the woman who has had nothing but negative experiences,
Yes.
I don't want her to blame herself. So
No.
what do you say to her? Because it's like, yes, you attracted this into your life, and that's okay. Because moving forward, and then so not only comforting herself in the fact that, yes, she chose to be with those people and they weren't the healthy choices at that time. Moving forward, how could she like block out, get rid of, release the negativity and any negative feelings that she has for men, and really invite that good, even the belief that there are good partners, because a lot of us are like, the good ones are all taken. There's
Mhm.
a lot of negative beliefs about our future when it comes to men and women.
Yes, I hear you, and I do hear that a lot, from friends. My sense is that from a metaphysical perspective, when you say there are no good men out there, and and really identify as this single woman who doesn't need any men, that's what you're going to get. If you are stating that as your identity to the world. So I would, I would argue that you're not looking for a million men, you're looking for one man, and
That
focus
is
on that.
okay, girl. Okay. True.
And there's certainly one good man out there for you, and that's all you need for the moment.
I love
Yeah.
that. Well, yeah, and even the Catherine who wrote the book Calling in the One, she called in the one, and they had a beautiful, healthy relationship. And then what was it, like a decade or so? And then they realized they were going to part ways. And
That's
now she
right.
has
Yeah.
another beautiful partnership in her life. So it's not that the only one is the death do us part one. It's
That's
having a
it.
healthy relationship where two people are getting their needs met, and then maybe they decide they don't want to be together, or they do. And either way, it's successful if both people are expressing themselves and feel fulfilled, if that makes sense.
Yes. Absolutely. I've given up the whole expression of sort of a failed relationship. I just don't really believe it anymore. Every
Yeah.
relationship has a beautiful lesson for us. It's like there's a harvest at the end of every relationship. And sometimes those harvests are painful lessons that we had to learn in our bodies. And sometimes they're more gentle lessons about what we do and don't want. And we're refining ourselves through every relationship. There is, that's the way I like to see it now. And I think, it's like any, when you're manifesting, when you're calling in, if you're looking for your dream house, you're just looking, you only need one house. And I also hear people talking about the apps and dating, saying, oh, it's a numbers game, and people are going out and going on lots and lots of dates and not meeting the kind of people that they really want to meet. And my suggestion in that situation is all of that energy and time that you're spending on going on all those dates, if you spend some of that cultivating your relationship with yourself, then, and I've heard you talk about this, you'll become magnetic. So rather than trying to find a needle in the haystack, you become the magnet and the needle comes to you. It's a much more empowered way of going about it.
we'll probably have a number of people who could make clips that they should put on the refrigerator as reminders, or in the bathroom on Post-it notes or something that you've said, especially the one about the lessons, because I can think of a couple women right now that are, fired up and angry about their former relationship, and it's like, yes, and I mean, you chose that partner, you stayed for the amount of time you did.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, there's some kind of lesson in this, even if it hurts after and now you're kind of mad. That apparently was some lesson that you needed to learn, and it's okay. Don't be mad at yourself for choosing that person or staying too long. Right? It is what it is. Like, just let it go and let it be that lesson. Like you said, even if it was painful.
I was just going to mention, when you are you talked about sort of some women you're working with that are in the throes of the angry, sort of feeling really angry at their ex and their relationship, angry at themselves, angry at their partner, railing against men and all of that. Mm-hmm. And when I went through my last breakup, because I had all this work, I also had Katherine's other book, which is called Conscious Uncoupling. And I had that by my bed. It was my Bible for that period of the breakup. And through the practices in that book, I recovered and grieved the loss and sort of completed that relationship. And it was a very painful end. And I completed that relationship within 9 to 10 months. And that is, I think, an extraordinary testament to the book itself and to the work. And a part of that is that we always, it's really, really important to go through all the anger and the grief and the pain, and even entertaining those revenge fantasies for a time, and also knowing when to let all of that go. When it serves you until it doesn't. There's a time for that, but that's not a place to get stuck. And moving forward into and the way again to move forward through out of that sort of the horror of all of that is really making an amends to yourself about what you've learned. And we talked about the harvest before, and so that was just a little piece I wanted to add about that, because that book is really very much a jewel.
So even if someone's not I love the harvest word. That's so you said that before, and then I forgot. And I'm like, yes, the harvest. That's a great way to say that. Anyway, the conscious uncoupling book, is that good for someone even if they're not actively in a relationship and looking to end it? It can be a resource just to look back on other breakups from the past.
Definitely. I really recommend it. Highly recommend that book. It's brilliant.
Okay, great. Love a book recommendation. Girl, you are just a wealth of perfectness. So can you share where folks can find you, like you, follow you, and then also talk about your free gift for the listener?
So yes, I have a beautiful, the visioning I mentioned earlier. It's an audio meditation. It's about a 10-minute long meditation. So if you go to my website, emilyblessington.com, you will find a form there. You just sign up to my emails and you will receive that audio in your email inbox. Also, you can follow me on Instagram. It's em_Blessington. And my coaching program is a 90-day program called Becoming Magnetic to Love. And it's a really beautiful program. It's calling in the one which is originally was 7 weeks, but I've expanded it to give it breath, to give it space. And it's a beautiful program. So thank you so much for having me on.
Thanks for listening to Your Unapologetic Life. If this episode felt like a truth bomb, share it with another woman you love. Make sure you're following the show, and please rate and review. It really helps. If you want weekly motivation in your inbox, there's a link in the show notes to join my email list. When you join my email list, you will get instant access to a video called Your Post Breakup Pump Up Video. I did the video because I like to be motivated in the morning to get my mind right, and that's what I wanted to give to you. You'll get that video. You'll also get weekly check-ins with inspiration, support, and how-to guides. So look for that every Monday in your inbox. If you're thinking, I like this Morgan Gallen, I want her to be my mentor and coach, you got it. Go to the show notes. Everything's in the show notes. Click the link to book a discovery call. That means you're going to get on my schedule. We're going to have a chat about my 90-day coaching program and see if it is exactly what you need right now. You know as well as I do, successful women go further faster with the right coach.